On Saturday morning, the Israeli delegation to the African Union summit was expelled from the opening ceremony in Addis Ababa. Videos emerged of security guards approaching the delegation led by Sharon Barley and demanding them to leave.
So there's a lot of Jewish South Africans that have dual citizenships. They have South African citizenship, they have Israeli citizenship. So Israel is also their country, but their homes is South Africa.
Okay.
So these Jewish South Africans go to Israel and serve in the IDF.
Okay.
They need to serve the military as a local from Israel. South Africa said, if you go as a South African and serve the IDF, you come back to South Africa, I will arrest you for murder, war crime, and genocide.
91 voted against and 248 voted in favor, and the motion as amended is accordingly agreed to.
So Ghana did something Africa is never supposed to do. It deported Israelis back. No questions, no detention, no consequences. And suddenly, Israel apologized.
Israeli settlers were kicked out of Cyprus immediately after they arrived by boat. They encountered an onslaught of people asking them to leave Cyprus and never to return.
Happening now. Conflicting reports and official statements are drawing global attention after several African countries confirmed immigration enforcement actions involving foreign nationals, including citizens from Israel. Social media claims have described the situation as sudden and widespread, while governments involved are urging caution and accuracy, saying the actions are legal, limited in scope, and tied to immigration compliance rather than political retaliation. Here are the confirmed facts first. In recent weeks, multiple African governments have announced stricter enforcement of visa, residency, and work permit rules. These actions apply to all foreign nationals, not one group alone. In some cases, Israeli citizens were among those affected, particularly where permits had expired, employment terms were violated, or documentation was incomplete. Authorities emphasized that removals followed domestic law and standard procedures. No single continental directive has been issued. Africa is not a single government, and each country acts independently. The measures differ by country and by case. Some actions involved short-term detention for processing, followed by removal. Others involved voluntary departure notices. Officials have stated that emergency or blanket expulsions are not underway. The timing has intensified scrutiny. Diplomatic tensions, public protests, and debates over foreign policy have raised sensitivity around any immigration action involving high-profile nationalities. In this environment, online narratives can move faster than verification. Analysts warn that headlines framed as collective punishment can mislead audiences and escalate fear. Governments involved have cited routine compliance checks. Immigration authorities regularly review work permits, business registrations, and residency status. When enforcement increases, removals often rise across multiple nationalities at once. Data released so far indicates that citizens from several countries, not only Israel, were affected during the same enforcement windows. Israeli officials acknowledged that some citizens were removed for visa-related reasons and advised travelers and residents to ensure documentation is current. Consular services were activated to assist affected individuals with travel arrangements and legal guidance. There has been no confirmation of coordinated mass deportations, targeting Israelis specifically. The economic context matters. Several African economies are tightening oversight of foreign labor and business activity to protect local employment and tax compliance. This has led to audits of companies and non-governmental organizations employing foreign staff. When audits find violations, immigration consequences can follow. This could mean increased scrutiny for all expatriates, regardless of nationality. Businesses operating across borders are being urged to update compliance practices. Analysts warn that uncertainty can grow when enforcement ramps up quickly, even if laws remain unchanged. Public reaction varies by country. In some places, civil society groups support stricter enforcement, arguing that equal application of the law is necessary. In others, there are concerns about due process and transparency. Governments say appeals mechanisms remain available. Diplomatic channels are active. African governments and Israel maintain formal relations in trade, technology, and security. Officials on both sides have indicated that communication is ongoing to clarify cases and prevent misunderstandings. There has been no announcement of severed ties linked to these incidents. The humanitarian angle is also under discussion. Any removal process raises questions about treatment, timelines, and access to legal counsel. Authorities state that international standards are being followed. Independent observers are calling for monitoring to ensure procedures remain fair. Information gaps have fueled speculation. Videos and posts showing individuals being escorted at airports are circulating without context. Analysts warn that isolated images can be misinterpreted as evidence of widespread action. Verification remains essential. Regional dynamics differ. Some countries are revising visa categories for foreign workers. Others are reviewing land, mining, or technology permits. Immigration enforcement often intersects with these policy reviews. This could mean more compliance actions in the near term across the region. For Israeli citizens living or working in Africa, the practical advice is straightforward. Check visa status, confirm employer compliance, and engage with consular services early. Similar guidance applies to all expatriates during periods of regulatory tightening. For African governments, messaging is crucial. Clear explanations reduce rumor and reassure investors and residents. Analysts warn that unclear communication can harm tourism, foreign investment, and diplomatic trust. The broader implication touches on mobility in a polarized world. As countries assert sovereignty over borders and labor markets, enforcement becomes more visible. This does not automatically signal hostility, but it does raise stakes for diplomacy and public perception. Economic consequences may follow. Short-term disruptions can affect projects reliant on foreign expertise. Over time, firms may localize roles or adjust staffing models. This could mean shifts in how international cooperation is structured. Media responsibility matters here. Accurate framing helps prevent the spread of fear or blame. Avoiding collective labels and focusing on verified facts supports calm understanding. As updates continue, authorities say more detailed data will be released. That transparency will be key to assessing scale, legality, and intent. As viewers consider this developing situation, one thoughtful question remains. In a world of rising enforcement and fast-moving narratives, how can governments protect their laws while ensuring fairness and preventing misinformation from driving conflict? The conversation around these immigration actions continues to evolve as officials release more clarifications and regional observers examine patterns rather than headlines. What stands out is that enforcement is happening during a period of economic adjustment across several African countries, rising unemployment, currency pressure, and public concern over access to jobs have pushed governments to show stronger control over labor markets. Immigration agencies are often the first institutions to act in such moments because border and residency rules can be enforced quickly. Analysts warn that when enforcement accelerates, the human stories can be lost. Individuals who built lives, businesses, or research projects across borders may suddenly face disruption. In some cases, people removed had lived legally for years but failed to update paperwork after rule changes. Authorities say the law applies regardless of duration of stay, while critics argue that transitional periods should be clearer and longer. This could mean growing pressure on governments to balance strict enforcement with predictability. Investors and international partners look for stability. When rules appear to shift overnight, even if they have not changed on paper, confidence can weaken. Several chambers of commerce operating in Africa have already advised members to conduct urgent compliance reviews. The diplomatic dimension is delicate. African countries value sovereignty and resist the idea that enforcement decisions are dictated by external pressure. At the same time, they rely on international trade, aid, and cooperation. Managing that balance requires careful language. Statements released so far emphasize legality, neutrality, and routine procedure, avoiding references to geopolitics. Israel's relationship with Africa is diverse and country-specific, spanning agriculture, water technology, health cooperation, and security training. None of the governments involved have announced a reversal of these partnerships. Officials stress that immigration cases should not be interpreted as a shift in diplomatic alignment. Public perception, however, does not always follow official explanations. Online narratives often compress complex realities into dramatic claims. Videos labeled as mass deportations gain traction even when numbers are small or cases are unrelated. Analysts warn that repeated exposure to such content can harden attitudes and increase mistrust between communities. This could mean that future enforcement actions, even routine ones, face louder backlash. Governments may need to invest more in public communication, explaining why actions are taken and who is affected. Transparency around numbers, timelines, and legal grounds can reduce speculation. Another factor is regional coordination. While there is no continent-wide directive, information sharing among immigration agencies has improved. Databases and biometric systems are being updated. This can lead to faster identification of overstays and permit violations. For foreign nationals, that means errors are more likely to be detected. From a legal standpoint, most African immigration laws allow removal when conditions of stay are violated. Appeals processes exist, but they can be slow. Legal aid availability varies widely. Civil society groups argue that access to counsel should be expanded, especially when language barriers exist. This could mean renewed debate about migrants' rights within Africa's broader push for economic growth. Attracting skilled workers while protecting local employment is a constant tension. Some policymakers propose clearer pathways for renewal and regularization to avoid abrupt removals. The impact on families is another concern. Mixed nationality households can be affected when one member is removed. Authorities say humanitarian considerations are taken into account, but decisions ultimately rest on legal status. Observers note that clearer family provisions could reduce hardship. Business continuity is also at stake. Projects in construction, energy, agriculture, and technology often rely on specialized foreign staff. Sudden removals can delay timelines and increase costs. This could mean companies accelerate training of local staff or adjust project scopes. Tourism perceptions may shift as well. Travelers watch news closely. Even when enforcement targets residents rather than visitors, fear can spread. Tourism boards are now emphasizing that entry rules remain unchanged for short stays. For African citizens abroad, these events resonate differently. Many face strict immigration regimes overseas and argue that equal enforcement at home is fair. Others worry that reciprocal actions could follow, affecting mobility. International organizations are monitoring developments. While no emergency has been declared, there are calls for data-driven assessments rather than anecdotal claims. Accurate statistics will help determine whether actions are increasing beyond historical norms. The role of media literacy becomes critical. Viewers are encouraged to check multiple sources and distinguish between official statements and viral posts. Analysts warn that misinformation can escalate diplomatic tensions unnecessarily. Looking ahead, this could mean a period of adjustment. As rules are enforced more visibly, compliance may improve, leading to fewer removals over time. Alternatively, if communication falters, distrust could deepen. Education and outreach may help. Governments can partner with embassies, employers, and universities to ensure foreigners understand requirements. Clear checklists, reminders, and grace periods can prevent violations before they occur. The broader lesson extends beyond any one nationality. Global mobility is tightening in many regions. Economic uncertainty often leads to stricter borders. Understanding this context helps explain why enforcement actions cluster in time. As updates continue, it is essential to separate verified facts from assumptions. Individual cases should not be used to define entire regions or relationships. Comanalysis supports constructive dialogue. With all this in mind, viewers may ask themselves a deeper question. How can countries enforce their laws firmly while protecting human dignity and preventing fear-driven narratives from shaping international relations?